If General George Patton had hesitated for even a fraction of a second during that fateful decision, the history of the 101st Airborne Division would likely have ended in the winter of 1944. They would not have just been captured. They would not have simply marched into prisoner of war camps to be recorded as survivors after the war. No, the fate awaiting them was irresuer. To vanish completely from this world. Not surrender, not defeat, but total cancellation. This was the real gamble in the frozen hell of December 1944. Welcome back to the forgotten scene of history. Let us pull the lens back to that frozen moment in time. It was the deep winter of December 1944 in a small Belgian town called Bastogne. Most Americans could not even pronounce the name, let alone find it on a map. But in that moment, it was the eye of the storm for the entire Western Front. The 101st Airborne Division, the screaming eagles who were meant to drop from the sky. They were instead pinned firmly to the ground, surrounded by a pack of hungry wolves. Can you imagine that scene? It was true despair. Ammunition was running out. Medical supplies were at rock bottom. Even the morphine was gone. Wounded soldiers howled in freezing barns without painkillers. Time was ticking away, and every second lost meant death. German tanks were squeezing in from all sides like iron pincers. Adolf Hitler had personally issued the directive that meant no prisoners, only destruction. Due to the atrocious weather, the Allied air power, their pride and joy, was grounded. Planes sat uselessly on runways. They were hundreds of miles away, frozen like scrap metal. No airdrops, no bombing support, barely even hope. Every rational military assessment pointed to the same cold conclusion. No one could get there in time. All the formulas, all the staff organs lead to the same bleak result that the 101st Airborne was doomed, except for one man. In this darkest hour of history, Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower. He stood on the edge of the cliff. He realized that perhaps in the entire Allied camp, there was only one madman, only one general, capable of executing a tactical maneuver everyone else deemed impossible. To save the most vulnerable point on the battlefield, this is the story of the moment George Patton truly made his move. This is not a legend about luck, this is a story about impossible odds. About the desperate ties in snow-filled foxholes, and a phone call of just a few short words that saved over 10,000 lives. The clock begins to tick. December 19th, 1944. Verdun, Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force. The air here was so heavy, it felt like it could drip water, mirroring the oppressive winter sky outside. The war room walls were covered in maps. The tables piled high with files. Red and blue pins and lines that once represented victorious advances had turned into a nightmare. The sudden German counterattack had torn through the Ardennes defense line, thrusting like a dagger into the American belly. Entire units were scattered. Some work rushed, others vanished in the chaos, but everyone's eyes were fixed on Bastogne. This crossroads town was not just a dot on a map. It was the throat of the entire campaign. Intelligence officers reported the bad news in low, precise voices. The 101st Airborne and other scattered units, 10,000 soldiers in all, were completely surrounded. This was not just an encirclement. It was a death sentence. The Germans outnumbered them several times over. Artillery sealed off every exit, and even basic rifle ammunition was being rationed. The wounded lay in cellars. At sub-zero temperatures, without bandages, without hot food, with only the silence of waiting for death. In that conference room in Verdun, Eisenhower stood before the massive map. His face was etched with exhaustion, the accumulation of countless sleepless nights since D-Day on June 6th. He listened to the reports without interruption, arms crossed. Eyes locked on the huge bulge protruding westward on the map, symbolizing the German offensive. When the intelligence summary ended, Eisenhower asked only one question. The only question that mattered: how long can they hold out? The intelligence officer hesitated. He knew this was not just a number, it was a verdict. Finally, he struggled to get the words out. Sir, realistically, for 5 days. With luck, maybe a week. After that, they will be out of ammo and food, and they will be overrun. Eisenhower's jaw tightened. Losing an entire airborne division would be an unbearable catastrophe, both militarily and psychologically. It would not just be the loss of an elite unit. It would be a devastating blow to Allied morale. These men were the heroes of Normandy, the survivors of Market Garden. They were living totems of American courage. If they were wiped out at Bastogne, the shockwaves would travel far beyond the snowfields of Belgium. What are our choices? Eisenhower demanded. The answers were despairing. To the north, Montgomery's British forces were containing the German advance but could not move south. To the south, other American units were bogged down in their own desperate fights, unable to spare the manpower, fuel, or time to launch a massive counterattack. To pull a massive army out of existing combat, turn them around, march north through a blizzard, and tear open a German encirclement in a matter of days. In any military textbook, that was a fantasy, except for the Third Army, except for Patton. For years, Eisenhower had been weighing the value of this man. He was brilliant yet extremely unstable, like a wildfire that could go out of control at any moment. Commanding Patton was like trying to harness lightning. Exhausting work. But right here, right now, looking at that black line of death on the map, Eisenhower knew he did not need a polite gentleman general. He did not need a steady administrator. He needed a bolt of lightning. Get Patton, Eisenhower ordered. Tell him, I want to see him in Verdun tomorrow. Bring a plan of attack. After his aide left, Eisenhower was alone in the room. His assistant, Harry Butcher, later recalled hearing Eisenhower muttering. To himself, it was not an order to a subordinate, it sounded more like a man pleading with fate. George, just this once, in this damn war. Do the thing I truly need you to do. Those paratroopers are counting on you. America is counting on you. I am counting on you. Don't let me down. The next day, December 19th, the Verdun conference took place as scheduled. This piece of history has been dramatized countless times. But the courtroom is often overlooked. The room was packed, stars shining on shoulders. The commanders responsible for the Western Front gathered around a table. The atmosphere was tense and fragile. Eisenhower's opening words were not about the map, but about psychology. He said, "The present situation is to be regarded as one of opportunity for us and not of disaster." It was a brave mask. Everyone present knew this was the gravest crisis. Since June 1944, Eisenhower laid out the core problem. The German offensive had created a massive bulge, but it also exposed their flanks. As long as Bastogne held, it would act like a nail stuck in the German throat. If Bastogne fell, the Germans could doctor deep, cutting the Allied lines. "I want every one of you," Eisenhower said, "to think carefully before you answer. How soon can you launch an offensive to relieve Bastogne?" Most commanders were frantically calculating in their heads. Moving division-sized units, clearing roads, stockpiling fuel, replenishing ammo. This would take days, maybe weeks. No one dared to give a promise they could not keep. Then George Patton spoke. "I can attack on the 22nd, he said. With 3 divisions. The room went instantly silent. The 22nd. That was 3 days away. Everyone turned to look at him. Some officers even wore expressions of disbelief, as if he were telling a joke that was not funny. To completely disengage a massive army attacking eastward. Turn the entire army group 90 degrees to the left in the snow, march 100 miles, and immediately launch an attack against the main German force. By any conventional standard, this was pure fantasy. Eisenhower did not smile. He stared at Patton, speaking slowly, every word heavy. "George, I am not looking for optimism. I am not asking for theoretical possibilities. On a map, I am asking what you can actually do. Really, 10,000 American lives depend on your answer. If it ends the same way, You say you will be there, but you are not. They die. Total annihilation. He paused, then asked again, "Can you really attack on December 22nd? Patton did not flinch. His eyes burned with a fanatical, steady light. "Ike," he replied, dropping the formal rank for the nickname. "I have already made 3 plans. My staff anticipated this possibility. We have wargamed D3 difference in areas for moving north. On the 22nd, my 4th Armored Division will launch the assault toward Bastogne. This is not a guess. It is not a hope. It is a fact." Eisenhower searched Patton's face for bluster, but he saw only something rarer. A cold, sharp certainty. In this gamble with barely a 1% chance of winning, this volatile general had actually prepared. "All right, George," Eisenhower finally said. "This is your mission. Relieve Bastogne. You have complete freedom of action. But understand this: if you fail, if those paratroopers die because you could not keep your promise, I will personally ensure you never command another unit again. Not even a platoon. Do you understand?" "Crystal clear, sir," Patton replied. "I will not fail." The following days, from December 20th to the 26th, saw a paper plan turn into a frantic march against the Grim Reaper. Patton's staff frantically issued orders, rerouted traffic, and reorganized supply lines as entire divisions made a difficult turn on snow-clogged roads. Hundreds of miles away, Eisenhower could only watch the map, living through those thin telegraph wires. The incoming reports were suffocating. American positions were shelled day and night. German infantry, covered by tanks, inched closer. With every firefight, most ox dropped. Medics were begging for bandages, for blankets, for anything to keep the wounded alive. The acting commander of the 101st, General Anthony Mikolev, received a German demand for surrender. He scribbled a single word on the paper that would become world-famous nuts. When Eisenhower read that report, a trace of a weary smile crossed his face. "At least their spirit is not broken," he told his staff. But he knew spirit could not stop tank shells. Patton had to get there. On December 22nd, as promised, the spearhead of the Third Army began its thrust north. They slammed headlong into the winter in the German Wehrmacht. Icy roads, blown bridges, ambushes, and elite German anti-tank guns. Progress was slower than anyone hoped. In Bastogne, the noose was tightening. Soldiers were down to their last few rounds. Artillery batteries were counting every shell like gold. The wounded lay on the ground, often without stretchers, directly on the frozen earth. Numb sentries stared at the white curtain of wind and snow, knowing that behind it, more Germans were gathering for the final blow. Eisenhower sent an urgent cable to Mikolev saying, "Hold at all costs. Relief is on the way." But in his private notes, he admitted a terrible truth. He had bet all his chips on Patton. If the Third Army could not break through, Bastogne would fall. On December 23rd, the skies over Bastogne finally cleared. C-40 7th Transport planes roared in low, dropping bundles of ammunition, medical supplies, and food. The paratroopers watched the parachutes bloom overhead like slow-motion salvation. It bought time, but only a little. Hitler was enraged and ordered that Bastogne must be taken. Eisenhower sent a more urgent message to Patton. "George, I need maximum effort. The 101st cannot hold out much longer. Whatever you are doing, do it faster." Words on paper are pale, but in reality, this meant thousands of freezing, exhausted men pushing themselves to the limit. Christmas Eve, December 24th. Eisenhower looked years older than he had a week prior. He attended a church service, trying to close his eyes for a moment, but his mind was filled only with soldiers, fighting and dying in the snow. Between hymns, he kept glancing at the door, waiting for a war report. Reports from Patton's spearhead were cautiously optimistic, but they were still just short of a breakthrough. They were fighting closer, but Bastogne remained tightly sealed. That night, Eisenhower sat at his desk. Drafting letters he prayed he would never have to send. Letters to the families of the fallen in the 101st. Letters to the chaplains. He had even prepared contingency plans for the worst-case scenario. December 26th arrived. Just before 5 p.m., the red telephone on Eisenhower's desk rang. The air in the room froze instantly. An aide picked it up, listened for a moment, then turned to his commander with an expression that made everyone hold their breath. "Sir," he said, "it is General Patton. He says it is urgent." Eisenhower snatched the receiver. "This is Ike." Patton's voice came through the static, carrying the unique exhaustion and excitement of a victor. "Ike, we are through. The 4th Armored established contact with the 101st at 1650 hours. The corridor is narrow, but it is open. We are pushing supplies and reinforcements in. Bastogne is relieved." For a heartbeat or two, Eisenhower said nothing. Observing officers saw his shoulders slump, as if a 1,000-pound weight had been lifted. His fingers gripping the phone turned white. "George," he finally spoke, his voice trembling slightly. "Say that again." "We have broken through to Bastogne," Patton repeated. "Those screaming eagles are safe, battered, but they held. We got there in time." Eisenhower's response was charged with intense emotion. "George, thank God. Thank you. You did it. You saved them." Patton, the tough guy who usually disdained emotional displays, deflected. "Just doing my job, Ike. Those paratroopers did the real work. We just opened the door." Eisenhower would not hear of it. "No, George, do not downplay this. You turned an entire army around in a blizzard and broke through in 4 days. That is not just doing your duty. That is why you are indispensable. Difficult as hell, but indispensable." After hanging up, Eisenhower remained standing by the map, staring at the thin reed line connecting the 3rd Army to Bastogne. Witnesses later recalled that his eyes were wet, and he did not bother to hide it. "Gentlemen," he told his staff, "General Patton has just accomplished something I will remember for the rest of my life. He saved 10,000 American soldiers." Teetering on the edge of destruction, he kept his word. When everyone else was calculating the impossible, George delivered a miracle. Official commendations soon flew to the 101st Airborne, praising their superhuman defense. Commendations went to the 3rd Army as well. But that night, Eisenhower sat down and wrote a more personal telegram to Patton. "George," he wrote, "words cannot adequately express my gratitude and admiration for the achievement of the 3rd Army. You promised you would be there. And you kept your promise. In doing so, you not only saved 10,000 soldiers, but likely saved the entire Ardennes campaign. Well done does not begin to cover it. This is an example of command art that military historians will study for centuries. I am proud to have you under my command, Ike." Years later, in his memoir Crusade in Europe, Eisenhower looked back on the Bastogne chapter with reverence. He described Patton's relief of the town as one of the key turning points of the Western campaign. He emphasized that such a massive troop movement usually existed only as a theoretical exercise in staff college classrooms, but at Bastogne it became reality. In an interview shortly before his death, someone asked Eisenhower what his most painful command decision during the war was. He did not mention D-Day or specific tactical choices. He said trusting George Patton to relieve Bastogne. That was a gamble of the highest order. "I bet the lives of 10,000 paratroopers and the stability of my entire line on a man who frequently gave me headaches. But I also knew at that moment in time he was the only one who could do it." When that call came in saying we are into Bastogne, the sense of relief, the gratitude, is something I still cannot fully describe. Those for short words might have been the most important for words I heard in the entire war. The relief of Bastogne was more than a military operation on a map. It was a wager of trust by a desperate commander on a genius general, a perfect combination of reckless courage and cold decision-making. When the impossible became possible, When 10,000 lives were snatched back from the Reaper, history remembered that moment. George Patton, in the wind and snow, kept his promise. If you want more hardcore breakdowns of history's deadliest miscalculations, smash that like button and subscribe. I am your strategy observer. I will see you on the next battlefield.